Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am not Mike Edrington. I am Daniel George. I am the vice chair. But Mike is traveling this evening and is unable to attend. So he passed off the virtual gavel. And I call us to order at on or about 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and start off a roll call. And get started. Let's start with folks on Zoom. How do you want to do this?
It's just dealer's choice.
Let's see. We have Old Sword Ocean View. If you want to pop on, introduce yourself and the council.
Yes, I'm Gary Meters. I'm coming to the end of my second year as FCC delegate, and I'm enjoying being here. Thanks.
Welcome. Thank you very much. And next up is Rogers Park Community Council.
Hi, good evening. I'm Marilyn Pillafont, and this is my first year as a delegate to FCC, and I have a cold, so I'm not coming in person.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Next up, Rabbit Creek.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Kenny, and I'm representing Rabbit Creek.
Welcome. Eagle River Valley Community Council.
Hello, my name is Alex Jorgensen. I'm my first year representing the Eagle River Valley Community Council at the FCC.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here with us. University area. Oh, you're on mute there.
Yeah, I'm Milford University area.
Then do we need to do a notification about recording?
It does it automatically
Does it? Okay.
when they join.
Wonderful. Okay. And then Eagle River Community Council.
Hi, this is Cliff Cook representing Eagle River. This is my first year as a delegate, and I'm also the vice chair for Eagle River.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Next up, I believe we have Fairview Community Council.
Hi, James Thornton, Fairview Community Council delegate. Nice to see everyone today.
And then it looks like we've got at least 2 other folks on here. Oh, that might be, go ahead with Muni.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Appleby. I am in current planning at the municipality of Anchorage. I'll just be listening for the first half, and then I'll be hopping off to join for the second half in person.
Thank you. And then Northeast Community Council.
Monica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Schwingendorf. I am a FCC delegate for the Northeast Council.
Largest, most populated community council, I believe. Cool. Okay, and then let's go around the room, starting with our delegates. Start at the opposite end of the table here.
Kathy Gleason, Kernigan Community Council.
John Thurber, South Edition Community Council.
Sarah Prescott Spinard.
Kevin Feynman, Campbell Park Community Council.
Birchwood, Carol Perkins, Birchwood Community Council. Molly, Bayshore Platte. Kathleen Plunkett, Western Jack.
Jason Norris, Buffalo Valley.
Lizzie Newell, Abbott Loop.
And Daniel George, Mountain View.
Patrick Lemaine, Scenic Foothills.
11 in the room, 12, 13, 14, 15. 12, 13, 14.
We have 18 in the room.
Okay,
Oh, sorry,
18
quorum.
So we have quorum. Okay, wonderful. Hey, look at that. Rocking and rolling. Okay. Can you get so we have an agenda before us this evening. Everyone should have a copy of that. We do have one item I would request be added to the agenda this evening. We have a representative from the Anchorage Fire Department here with us this evening. And I would like to afford a few minutes after the school board updates in part 2 to allow them to speak. If someone will be willing to help us move and amend the agenda so we can get that approved.
Move to amend the agenda to accommodate someone from the fire department here this evening.
Second. Second by Kevin.
Just a question.
Sure.
Could we not move him up right after introductions so that if he needs to leave, he's able to?
I mean,
I mean,
that's nonprofit business. So just in the sense of like which hat we're wearing in that section.
I understand, but if he has to leave before, then he wouldn't be able to give us a report.
I'm good.
Oh, okay, well,
Thank you though.
Yeah,
All in favor?
yes.
Any objections? Hearing none. The agenda is approved. Okay, that brings us to approval of minutes. Has anyone who would like to review a copy had an opportunity to grab one from the table and review one?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Marilyn Pilifant, Rogers Park. I did not see an attachment for the minutes to download, so I don't have a copy of them.
Do it. My computer's not working.
My apologies. I think we're gonna try and drop those in the chat here.
Oh, okay, I should have said that through chat. Or you're sending them.
We'll try and drop a copy of those in the chat.
It is on the website under minutes, but I also am trying to drop one in the chat so it's easier for you guys. And of course, my
Oh.
computer.
Okay, I did not go to the website. I went to the notice of the meeting.
In order to allow folks, is it in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, in order to allow folks on the Zoom a chance to take a look at those. Perhaps we should roll forward and then come back to that here in a couple minutes. We don't have a chair report because our chair is not here this evening, so we're gonna make good time. And I'm not gonna add a whole lot. I think that we can dispense with the chair report. We don't have a treasurer's report either because we don't have a treasurer currently. So I know you all came this evening hoping to serve as our treasurer. Unfortunately, only one of you will be able to do so. We'll get to that here. And that brings us to our executive director report. Would you like to give some updates?
Yeah, absolutely. So October, I'm trying a couple different formats, see what works for people. If you have any feedback, let me know. But we have a written report this time. Tried to give it in a way so that you guys can take it back to your councils. Additionally, I've been sending out like an after Board of Delegates meeting follow-up. So if you want to remember when you get to your council, like, what did we talk about? That's like a great reference point that I'm trying to provide. So you can just read down what we talked about. So we did a lot this from our last meeting. We had our first town hall, which a smaller turnout in person, but at this point we're over 120 people have watched online, which I'm really excited about. We also talked to a bunch of people at the Parks and Trails Recreation Fair, which was the Saturday before our town hall. So really excited about that. The website update continues. It's slow going, as you can imagine, but we're in the same phase we were last month. Some of our support opportunities that we've engaged with, we've got more than 5 councils working with us on fiscal sponsorship in various capacities. We have 4 open grants at this time. And we did have one council reach out to come and use this room for a meeting. So if you need additional Zoom space or you want to use this room, reach out to us, let us know. That's another of the many things that we're trying to offer for everybody. If you want to borrow an owl, again, reach out to us and let us know. We did help a council move from online to hybrid, so we were really excited to support that. But we're here to do all sorts of fun technical things with you guys, so let us know. And then upcoming in the next month, we have part 2 of our town hall series on Monday, navigating community councils. John Weddleton and Harry Mead will be our two speakers for that. And then I do want to point out, we're having a second board roles and responsibilities. We are going to cover the same topics as last time, but it is going to be a different presenter, Heather Harris, also from 4Acre. So if you went to the last one, you know, no obligation to come again, but we might talk about different things. It will be in person again. This is to encourage conversation and collaboration and kind of figure out where people have questions and where to answer it. So we really want to see as many of our board members possible, or your alternates as well. If you are an alternate or you have an alternate, it's open to anybody who could come and serve as our delegate, because we want everybody to be educated about their role as a board member. And also this is the first step in us moving forward on having a strategic plan and updating our mission. And so knowing what your role as board members are in relation to how we're going to set strategic plans is really important. So we do ask, you know, come have some food, conversate with us. It will be at the library this time because this space was unavailable on the date that I wanted it. So it's at the Moose Room at the library.
What date?
On Tuesday, November 12th, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And that should not be a problem with the assembly. I tried to check to make sure it didn't coalesce with any of the meetings, but I apologize if I missed. I think last time I ran into Midtown District Plan, but doing my best. And then we have part 3 of our town hall series, which is geared towards you guys and your boards, guiding community council meetings. So if you're interested in being part of the conversation about how to set up a successful room, how to create a welcoming and open space, that third part of that town hall series, November 18th, or if you have people that you think might be good on your board that you want to try and like get involved, this would be something to send them to. It's particularly targeted for board members. So that's November 18th at the library. It will also be live streamed and then available on our YouTube, but in person people get to ask questions of our speakers. So, you know, if you have people part of your board who are like, I don't even know what I'm doing on this board, but I'm trying my best, like we're going to try and answer some of those questions. And then I did put on there, Alaska DOT and reached out. They want to try and talk to the councils about various things in regards to the pedestrian safety. And so you might see more messaging as we partner with them to try and get some information. They want to visit councils individually and also work with us as the federation. So you might see some of that coming through. Yeah, and then I just wanted to kind of put like the future as we think about next year and what we're going to be doing next year and what the goal of this organization is. I put some questions on there. What do you see the priorities of the FCC being in the next 5 years? What training do you think should be offered? Where do you think the FCC should go to do outreach? Those are, you know, kind of rhetorical questions, but hopefully in the new year, we'll be doing a big meeting and conversation about how to answer those questions. And so I kind of wanted everybody to think on them a little bit. Yeah, and then our next board meeting, we are going to have this first CIP survey training. The dates are almost confirmed to be moved up. So it sounds like end of January, early February is when CIP is going to be opening. And it will be like January to March is what it's sounding like. They said that in the budget meeting. So it's on the, it's not secret, it's on the record. So Chelsea will be talking about that. There will be more trainings in the new year to both on the technical aspect and then outreach trainings to help educate the public about why these surveys are so important and why people should be involved. So we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff around that, but Chelsea will be here to introduce it to everybody, talk about the new timeline, try to get everybody up and going so that it's not a surprise and it's a lot easier to work with for y'all. Yeah, that is all I have. Any questions? Yeah,
Your November 18th meeting at the library.
yeah.
Time and room number?
It's in the Wilder Marston and it's at 7. I think it's 7 to 8. It's 1 hour.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions on Zoom? And I also want to note, I missed it earlier, Bob French with Government Health Community Council on AMAX is also with us this evening. Ari, would you mind, I think you just mentioned or talked about some of the other work that you've been doing, as far as stuff that's coming down the pipe here, policies, maybe just mention policies that we might be seeing in the next few months.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about the budget last time we were here, you know, where is the MOA in terms of the budgetary process?
Sure. So policy wise, we have some like housekeeping policies we want to look at in the next couple of months. A retention policy, how long we're gonna have documents, what did I call it? It's a social media, not social media, it's sorry, a privacy policy for people's emails and the information that we collect, just some standard policies that we should have that we need to have. If I'm applying for other grants and stuff, people ask for that kind of stuff. I think she might be at the door. So yeah, that is some of the policies that, and you know, we're trying to bring all of the things up to date. I know Mike wants to work on a fiscal policy. I know we talked about looking at bylaws maybe, so you might see that coming down in the next couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for the budget was released. We are part of the clerk's budget, so we are wrapped up in a bunch of other stuff, not a visible line item, really. I'm sure that they're gonna ask about us, but they did not get to the assembly budget in the last work session that I listened, as far as I could tell, so they haven't talked about us yet.
Okay.
So that's as far as I know.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Any more questions on the director's report? Okay, thank you very much. We'll roll back up to approval of minutes. Everyone had a chance to take a peek at the minutes. Any questions? A motion would be in order.
Move to approve the September 2024 minutes of our delegate meeting.
Move to approve, okay.
I will second that. Marilyn Pelafant, Rogers Park.
Seconded by Marilyn. Seeking unanimous consent. Any objections, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, minutes are adopted. Okay. Wow, we're cruising right along. I don't recall we've had any old business floating out there. I think our last new business item was the presentation we had on the land use plan from Aaron Baldwin Day. And then prior to that, I don't know if we had anything else hanging out there. Is there any other old business that anyone wanted to discuss at this time?
Would this fall under maybe the next segment with regard to the timing of the council boundary tenure?
I can just give a quick update.
Okay.
I have been trying to get Tom to post it. We are still waiting on planning.
Okay.
So every day, once a week I email him and he says tomorrow and I go, okay. So as soon as it comes out, you guys, I will send lots of emails about it. They did say that they were gonna push back the planning and zoning plan. So I think we were hoping to have this done in February. It sounds like March or April might be more realistic. We are still just waiting on planning.
Yeah.
But I will keep everybody in the loop.
Now, when you say planning and zoning document, are you referring
Sorry,
to the
the-
2040 land, the 2020?
I'm
49
in planning and
plan
zoning
or-
commission, so it'll go before the council.
Oh, I see.
And for a couple months and then to the commission and then to the assembly.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, and that would be under old business because we have had that notice previously.
Okay.
Yeah, I did see there was email traffic about that being delayed again, so I know a lot of folks are wondering where that's been at. There's a question from Marilyn.
Sorry, yes, I have a question. So the Tom Davis, he's the main planner guy for P and Z on the boundary issue. So I missed the part where he'll bring it in February, or can you repeat the timeline?
So the plan originally was to have everything wrapped up around February. But because they are more, like at this point, almost a month delayed, we are looking at pushing back. So it was gonna go to before planning and zoning in December. They're gonna push it back to when makes sense. They still want to give councils 2-ish months to talk about it. And so we have to wait on planning. And once planning decides, then it'll go before councils for at least 2 months. And then planning and zoning they talked about having them for 2 meetings of planning and zoning and then before the assembly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to new business. We need a treasurer. We need an executive board that is filled. Who wants to join the executive committee and serve as our treasurer?
You don't have to know money, I promise. Our accountant's really good at it.
I'm just gonna point and nominate someone.
Who's not in the room?
Or we can nominate someone in absentia, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yes, this would be a term lasting until June 30th, 2025. The obligations would be to attend our regular monthly meetings and then to also once a month attend our executive board meeting to work with our bookkeeper. Kevin Feynman has served in the past. He can share additional duties about the role and the responsibilities and the what's required for the position, but this would be an opportunity for someone who's not necessarily sure they want to jump into running the FCC somewhere down the road, but an opportunity to maybe step up and serve right now and learn a little bit.
We do most of our meetings are on Zoom, so if you're not wanting to come into the office all the time, that's totally fine.
We are a 501 nonprofit, and we do need an executive board that functions. So I think I've got 14 more minutes of awkward silence. I can just look at you all. No, I hate to twist your arm. Yes, Kathy.
I have a question.
Yes.
For Kevin Feynman. Is that something you would still be willing to step in and do for another term?
I did not put her up to that, I promise.
Kevin's
No, because
I'm just,
I've been the treasurer
I know.
officially 7 out of the previous 10 years. And I twice came back and filled in other people's. And it's not something that I can do between now and April 15th of next year and give my clients. People don't know how much my clients have sacrificed for me to do all these other boards, and that loud cheering you heard, it wasn't UAA volleyball, it was when I was no longer the treasurer. So I'm willing to help, and I would say you don't have as far as to help try and get somebody in there, it's kind of rare that you could come in and get a nice little training and have a 9-month period of time where we don't even actually meet one of those months, I think, and kind of break in. So if there's somebody who thinks, oh, I maybe would like to know kind of what that is, or I wouldn't mind learning a little bit about it, this is probably a kind of a good opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that.
And I'm around, I've always been around when Don, and a couple of Don Crafts and Sam and the other people that would come in and fill in for me a year or two in between. I think I always tried to help them.
Yeah, it's definitely a warm handoff for sure. There's support for it. So if you're not ready to jump up and self-nominate or nominate someone you care about, for instance, your alternate or council president, I fully understand, but definitely think about it. You know, if there's folks that were delegates that weren't able to make it here this evening that you think we ought to talk to, please let me know after the meeting. Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we have a board that is capable of doing all the work. We're very fortunate to have staff that are very capable and can serve all of the community councils, but we need to make sure that we provide them with a board that can also support them. So
I will also say our bylaws do say we have to have 4, so unless we change the bylaws, there's no comboing.
as far as someone serving a dual role.
Yeah.
So. Sorry, you can't nominate me. Okay. Well, I can read the room, so I will move on. Sorry. But next month I will definitely spend the whole 15 minutes till we find somebody. Comment period. I guess we've got some free time here. This is an opportunity for folks to share about what's going on in their communities. You know, this is something that we've oftentimes unfortunately been stuck with at the end of the meetings, and it's one of the most valuable parts of the FCC meetings is sharing about what's going on in our community councils. So we've got you've got a minute or two per council at least. Oh, for council too. So this is just comment period from the public then, or what?
This is just comment period for the nonprofit side.
Oh,
That's just
okay.
fair.
Well, you can share your thoughts and feedback about how we're doing as a nonprofit. You know, this is an opportunity because we are delegates to the board to provide feedback. So I'll just open up the floor.
So, Scenic Foothills won a grant, with, I wrote the grant, I can't even remember who.
Anchorage Park Foundation.
There you go. And we were successful, $30,000 for the Baxter Bog, gravel trails, and you were trying to figure out the whole 501c3 and all that, and so we partnered with the Park Service, and they're handling the funds.
Yeah.
And we had our first weekend of putting gravel down, and the amazing amount of people that came out of the woods in our neighborhood. And it was amazing. We had probably more volunteer hours for the match than we needed. So next year we'll be doing more of the trail, but we hit the muddiest spot. So as a nonprofit, there's grants out there to help your individual communities, your own parks. And we found out that if the Park Service can't get to like the entranceway for the grass, we're allowed to bring our own lawnmower out there and cut the lawn if it's overgrown or do some maintenance. They said, yes, please.
So what was the award amount of the grant?
I think it was 30,000 or 15,000. I can't remember.
Yeah. So
I write grants for a living, and all the numbers start running together.
Anchorage Park Foundation, for the grant that they had, can act as the fiscal sponsor. So you guys stayed directly with the Park Foundation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're the fiscal sponsors.
And doesn't the IRS have a value they assign to volunteer hours?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
35?
35 something an hour. Yeah,
It's quite a bit.
So, I mean, the fiscal impact to the community, you could probably quantify that, and.
yeah, we had to do a 50% match with volunteer labor, and we're meeting it, exceeding it. Yeah.
I also want to recognize Turning Arm Community Council. We've got Michael Packard here with us this evening. Welcome.
We elected you treasurer.
Unanimously. My name.
I think he's just tuning in. I think he might have missed it. Hey, Michael, good to have you with us this evening. Anyone else like to share feedback or comments before we take a break?
We don't need a break. Everybody's here. We can move into it.
All right. Anyone want a break to get some coffee or anything before we move in? No? Okay. All right. Well, this might be a very efficient meeting this evening. Cool. Moving on to the second act. No opening meeting remarks because I am not Chair Edgington. So, and those don't carry over, so he doesn't get to do that when he gets back. So we'll go into our government reports. Do we have a representative from the mayor's office with us this evening?
They might be late. So if we just want to do fire and then circle back if they jump.
That would be perfectly fair because we are ahead of schedule. So, yeah, surprise. I guess you're up.
Sounds good. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Glover. I am newly hired, like very newly hired, day 7 with the Anchorage Fire Department. And I was hired as their wildfire manager to help all things related to wildland fire suppression, mitigation, prevention, all of that kind of stuff for the Anchorage municipality. I asked if I could speak here today, one, to introduce myself. I know we have a lot of at-risk community councils, at-risk communities across the municipality. And as you guys know, or should know probably, we are actively working on producing a CWPP, a community wildfire protection plan for the Anchorage municipality. And with that, we're also trying to get pretty involved in our mitigation work and hazard fuel reduction across the municipality. One of the things that I've been tasked with is kind of how to prioritize, how we're going to engage with some of those projects. And really, as we get rolling with our hazard fuel reduction projects, what I'm trying to do is figure out the most at-risk communities that we have within the municipality, and then also prioritize access and egress, access for our firefighters and egress for our residents. And that's kind of how I'm looking to prioritize some of the projects that we're doing right now. And then, of course, there are also going to be opportunities where we have the right tool to be able to engage on a different type of project that maybe not as big or whatever else. So with that being said, we're working with the Basher Community Council right now and looking to engage on a pretty sizable project along the Campbell Airstrip Road. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk here is just because it kind of touches very closely to a bunch of the other community councils. And we'll have it'll be a pretty significant thing to see. We're shooting for 150 foot on either side of Campbell Airstrip Road, Basher Road, going the whole stretch of that access point, which is about 3 miles. And we're looking to remove all of our coniferous trees that are 20-inch DBH and smaller, provide 10-foot crown spacing between our deciduous trees, and then try and remove all of the ground fuel that is basically an obstruction or an impedance for access in there. So what that means to the person driving the road and the resident up there, or anybody else that's accessing those trails, is it's going to be a sizable fuel break that you can see from a distance, but it will also significantly help our firefighters for using that as a control line if that is needed, and provide for some good resiliency to fire impact in the event that we're having to egress out of the Stuckagon Heights community. So it's the reason I'm talking now is we have an opportunity to actually engage on it this fall. We're trying to touch all of the right pieces that we need to in order to be able to get equipment working in that area, hopefully before significant snow impacts and shuts down that progress. So we're trying to be a little bit aggressive in our messaging and our seizing our opportunities to actually get some work done. But that is it's a start point for us. One of the other advantages of that area is just the land ownership along that road. It provides us an opportunity to just have to coordinate with a fewer amount of entities and get permissions and approval to be able to engage on that. Obviously, we're going to be touching as many community councils as we can and trying to prioritize different areas for hazard fuel reduction projects in the future this season, and I'll be spending my winter working on some of those projects. But if you guys have questions or concerns or anything else, I'm happy to address some of those. I'll speak to what I can. Like I said, it's day 7 on the job, so I won't speak to anything I'm not certain of. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead.
The more urban neighborhoods have fire risk also.
Yes.
From the parks, the campgrounds in the parks and the fires in the parks. Is there any thought on how those campground fires might be mitigated somehow going forward?
Yeah, I think there's going to be opportunities to engage in all of those areas. I think Fairview Extension is my community. And we have a lot of those kind of urban camping areas that are heavily forested. Some of the benefits to a firefighter in those areas is we have man-made control features all around there, right? Roads and stuff like that. So we don't have potential for large fire growth. With those, we do have potential for issues and challenges. But again, prioritizing some of the effort that we're doing right now is kind of on some of those more challenging areas to even access and egress out of for the for some of our larger communities. And none of those all of the projects are on the table. All of those areas are on the table. And actually, some of those urban forestry ones, we might even have some access to some different grants to be able to engage on those. But all of those areas are on my radar to be able to engage in. And as we have opportunities, we will be working on those.
So has there been any thought, I mean, I know it's only been 7 days, but these campgrounds that are in these urban parks where fires are common, has there been any thought of trying to provide, you know, a controlled fire rings or controlled fire facilities for people, so it's not just random fires in the forest?
That is not something I can speak to. I don't know if they've pursued that in any way, shape or form. From my opinion and perception, I think enabling people to have more fires in the woods would not necessarily be the right approach.
Well, we wouldn't call it enabling, we would be calling controlling those fires.
Understood.
As someone who lives next to a park and I see fires in the park, my concern is maybe if those were controlled, I'd have less risk.
Yeah, I'm tracking what you're saying there, and I don't know if there's been any thought to putting like fire rings in the woods for the urban campers and stuff like that. But we're trying to stay focused on hazard fuel reduction, and that's kind of our primary engagement right now.
Let's go to Carol Perkins and then Kathleen, and then move around over here to.
Okay.
Do you cover Eagle River, Tubiac, and Birdwood?
Yes, it will be for the municipality in its entirety. Yes, ma'am.
Not just the whole thing.
Correct.
Okay.
And our CWPP that we're working on, our Community Wildfire Protection Plan, speaks to all of those areas. We just identified a contractor for that, and we are having our first kickoff meeting at the end of this month. So that is all on our map and areas that we're going to be engaging in, and those community councils will be engaged with as well.
Kathleen.
So are you also going to be working in the parks as well? I can give you a pretty good example. Russian Jack Springs Parks has a lot of homeless camps where they've built structures which are obviously not to code. If there was to be a fire, I think it would be pretty dangerous for the fire department going in, from the comments that our council members have made in terms of what they look like and how they have been built. So is that something that you would be doing? Because you have a lot of houses, just like you were talking, right next to a big forest.
On these initial projects that we're working on, including Bachelor Road, we're working directly with Parks and Rec, with the municipality. So Mike Braniff, who's their director,
He was at our meeting.
Yep, and I just talked to him before I came to this one. He was the one that gave me the guidance to come to this meeting. So I am in constant communication with him, and we are prioritizing all of the projects. And he actually has access to some of those. The parks are a little bit more freely accessible for us to engage in than some of our areas that have like joint ownership on some of the project areas that we're trying to treat. So we are looking to engage in the parks and actually work on some of those and do some hazard fuel reduction there as well.
Abbott Loop, followed by turning it on community council.
Yeah, I got 3 questions. One is there was funding coming through from the state for fire mitigation on Hillside, and then just would like to know what you have on what's happening with that.
Which funding source?
There was Kaufman, and had got some funding from the state.
Is that with the Halo project?
Yeah, with the Halo project.
So I am not, again, day 7, right? So give me a little bit of grace.
Okay.
But, I have worked with some of the people that are a part of Halo.
Okay.
And am engaging with them, and to the best of my ability from this position, I will help support them in the
Okay.
projects that they're doing, but that those Halo funds are, to my understanding, are executed through some of the projects that they identify and how they implement. So we will provide guidance and support for everything that they need. And like I said, some of those folks that are in that group, I've worked with previously on different working groups and things like that, so I'll be helping them out in any way.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually on the Halo board as well, and I'm like the person that doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, so, then I was also, wondering about, Ruth Arcand, Park, you're doing things in there,
We have not initiated
Okay.
anything in
Okay.
there right now. I can tell you that 20 years ago, I worked in that park.
Right.
And did a whole bunch of fuels mitigation work there. And I think some of those areas that have been treated in the past through different grants and funding sources that we had, we'll definitely be looking at retreating some of those areas as well. They've had a lot of deadfall.
Yeah.
They were identified as a risk previously, so we'll vet that and
Yeah,
then.
somebody's been in there cutting, so,
Yeah.
then, also, near Trailside Elementary School in the Abbott Community Park. There's an area in there, I think it's the Planet neighborhood, I think is high fire is. Planet neighborhood, they got Mars, Saturn, Jupiter,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Constellation.
Oh, right, the constellation.
No, those are in Tourniquet.
Yeah.
Galaxy,
Yeah,
Milky Way.
that's right.
Yeah, and then, where can I stay up to, keep track of what you're doing, where can I get information?
So, one of the things that we're doing with the CWPP, we will be, providing some information on the municipal website, AFD side of the municipal website. Again, day 7, so don't ask me for an actual HTML address link. But we are part of what we're trying to do is make this as highly visible as possible to the community so they can see what's going on in their community and the work that the department is doing for it. So it should be on the Anchorage Fire Department website, or at least be a link to some of the actions that are being done there. And then we'll be continuing to engage. I will be continuing to engage in community council meetings and listening to the concerns and some of the prioritization. But like I said, we're trying to emphasize our initial work on providing kind of the most bang for the buck for the responders that are going to be coming in there to support in the event of a wildland fire emergency and provide egress for our residents as well.
And let's give Trinity Arm Community Council a chance here to ask a question.
Okay, I want to thank you, start off with, for coming down and talking to us. I'd also like a contact number so I can contact you and discuss some of the issues we have down here in Trinket Arm, perhaps a month from now when you're a little more settled in.
I appreciate you giving me that grace. I have some business cards that I'll leave out here, and maybe I can give one to Ariana that she can drop in the chat.
I'll put it in the email follow-up too.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I greatly appreciate you coming out here. But before we go to Kathy, I just want to recognize, Basher Community Council, we don't have a representative, unfortunately, here this evening about this, but if that road, Campbell Airship, were to be obstructed, there was a fire, what is the plan to access for emergency services for that large neighborhood? What is the alternative for those folks?
That is the primary, and that is the secondary. And that is the truth behind that.
So very important.
So that's one of the reasons that this reduction project, fuels reduction project, is so important to me. I mean, they're on their own if we're unable to make access. So I can tell you that we would be, as firefighters, we would be cutting our way into there, but we would have to do that when it was safe to do so. So it's a pretty big priority. I know there's, you know, a lot of discussion about a secondary egress, through military installation and, potentially building a bridge and some of those things you know, there's a lot of options that require a lot of coordination with other entities and because none of those are quick fixes or really on the table at this moment, our priority is reducing the hazard fuels along that corridor so we can maintain access even in the event of a wildfire.
Thank you. Mr. Lemay, last question.
Yeah.
I know Scenic Foothills, you're the alternative.
Yes, we are, and I would like to invite you to our next meeting. What, that secondary egress out of Basher, last year we tried to connect it to our much desired trail.
Like Bulldog Trail area?
Yeah, back there, and we tried to connect it to the initiative to get a secondary egress out of Basher, and we talked with the lawyers at the military, and they didn't say no, they said, hell no. You're not coming onto our land.
The job I left to come here was the fire management officer and we were at Jaber. So I can tell you that the security risks involved with that are pretty significant. That entire Bulldog Trail is they use it as convoy live fire.
Yeah.
So they're actively firing munitions in that area. And the coordination it would require for accessing that area would be significant. So I don't think that's gonna be something that moves very fast ever.
Thank you. You have one last quick item?
Well, I'm curious about the parks in particular, because I assume, you know, you're looking at it in a perspective of a balance. We don't want to clear cut our natural open spaces within our bowl area.
Correct.
So who decides how much is enough versus kind of once you got chainsaws and people in hand that kind of sometimes go over the top in terms of planning. So I mean, how do you view that as protecting our natural open space and the treeness of it and the wildlife habitat of it, but also address, you know, certainly valid concerns. We almost had we did have a fire at Earthquake Park several years ago because of a homeless camp. And right next to the, you know, residential part of Turnagain and there. And so we know the risks, there's risks, but we don't want like Earthquake Park to just become see through everything. You know, it takes away from the nice aesthetic parts of our natural open space parks.
Yep, so a lot of that is experience based on what to know is effective and what is not effective. I mean, I have 23 years of experience in this job. I work on the Alaska Incident Management Team, and we are one of 44 national teams that deploy all over the United States and manage the largest fires that this country has to offer. So my position with that team is the operations section chief. So I'm intimately aware of what is needed to be able to make a defendable stand along an egress route or a roadway or a control line. And a lot of the variables that go into making a decision on distance of separation and fuels and how much we remove is based on fuel, slope, right? And the potential that we have for an impact and the type of impact we'll have, whether it's a large crown fire or a ground fire, or whatever else in that area. If we're talking about Earthquake Park, it's going to be a different type of fuel reduction project and specification that we would be providing there versus somewhere up on hillside where we have, you know, bogs that have heavy black spruce fuel loading in there. It's on a slope. And, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for energy buildup and wind alignment and everything else to impact that roadway there. So there is a science to it. We run all kinds of models and we look at potential fire behavior in different areas. And that is a lot of what helps decide, but a lot of it also goes on experience and what we know will not work.
Yeah. And also working with community and neighborhoods to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
Sounds like you're going and continuing.
That's why we're here, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
We really appreciate it.
No problem. Here, y'all. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, and it looks like we have Anchorage School Board member Andy Holloman with us this evening. We're running right on schedule now. Member Holloman, welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time and also the way your agenda is laid out. That worked out very well. I think the biggest thing of concern to the community councils coming up is we are in the process of identifying elementary schools for consolidation. It doesn't necessarily mean that the buildings will be closed. They might be repurposed to other uses. But it does mean closing it as a neighborhood, say K-6 school, and relocating students into other nearby schools. We've kind of set guidelines for the administration and how they consider which schools to close. It's possible we may see some of the same names that we saw a year ago when we went through this process. But the bottom line is in every grade level, we have a decreasing number of students as you go down in grade level. Like we don't have as many fifth graders as we do sixth graders right now. Don't have as many fourth graders as we do fifth graders. So we're expecting a continued drop in student enrollment into the foreseeable future unless something changes in Anchorage and people start moving here again. So it will be upsetting for the schools that are identified, and we will announce it. We'll be holding town hall meetings for people to come out and talk about it while we consider what we're going to do. But the essence is we just have a lot more capacity than we have students at this point. We're down about 5,000 students from our peak. The consolidation into single larger schools just makes a lot better use of staff, especially our specialists, and it keeps us from spending money on space that's not really being utilized for direct instruction. So I think that's the biggest thing. The budget's out there, but that's more of a November, December, January thing. And other than that, things are kind of rolling along okay in the district. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you addressing that very important topic. We'll go to questions. We'll start off with folks on Zoom first this time. Any questions on folks on the Zoom? And I do apologize. I didn't see there, Marie. We're a little out of order, so my apologies. We did have someone from the mayor's office and I skipped over them, so that's on me. We'll come here to the room now. Any questions for Member Holloman? Russian Jack.
So Andy, I brought this up with, I think it was Carl who was at our meeting, but I don't know if it's been passed on. I know that one of the schools in our area is probably one that will be up again. The biggest issue, besides the fact that we have a lot of kiddos that I think will have issues going to school because of the percentage of kids that are in transition, that I would like you to look at considering. But for me, it's also going to be the traffic pattern, that if you were to put another facility in, the impacts that would have to the neighborhood and the community. We already live in an area where Wonder Park is. It is a huge speed zone. And I see it only getting worse if you were to put something different in that facility rather than a walking school. So I would like to hope if you look at that, you also look at the traffic patterns associated with and the impact to the neighborhoods. And I didn't see that in the survey when I processed it.
I will say it's one of the considerations, but it's probably down there on the list. I mean, we try not to create traffic problems, but at the same time, anytime we utilize a building, that does happen. One of the possibilities is that we might create pre-K centers or childcare centers in partnership with private organizations. And that probably would be a traffic issue because you would have a lot of individuals that aren't necessarily utilizing buses and aren't necessarily within walking distance. So that is a potential thing to look at when we start to roll out what our recommendations are. The other thing is we may take something and dedicate it to like maintenance facilities or something else that would actually probably be a low traffic situation.
Thank you. Any other questions from the delegates? Thank you. I don't see any. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, School Board Member Hallman.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good. Rolling back up, my apologies, Marie Husa with Mayor LaFrance's office. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. There's so much that has happened in the office. We had our 100 days in office. It's hard to believe. It feels like forever. And so there has been a lot of successes that we celebrated. Delivered a budget among some of them, and all the budget is aligned with the LaFrance's administration's priorities with good government staffing, increasing staffing, and also with services, buying more graders, having in the budget room for more graders, to purchase more graders, also higher salaries for our equipment workers, for those operators, for those graders, and also for homelessness abatements, and also the funding for 24 hours mobile intervention team among some of the top budget items that, again, aligns with the mayor's priorities. We've had a contract for the homelessness issue that we face. A contract has been awarded for a non-congregate setting of 200 beds, and more more beds is under negotiation at this point. And you may have heard about the prosecution issues, and that has been something that Eva Gardner, our municipal attorney, has been aware of since she started and has been communicating the issue with the assembly. And that's why since the beginning, her goal has been to hire attorneys. And there has been, I believe, a total of 4 or 5 now that, 5 in the last 4 months in the prosecution's office. So we're chugging right along. There's a lot of work to do, but a lot of work is also being done, and hopefully you've been hearing about them as we try to communicate and be transparent with the actions that this administration has been undertaking. Again, a lot has been happening, so I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions in the room first, delegates. Anyone? Jernigan.
Hi, thank you so much for attending our FCC delegate meeting this evening. Are there opportunities for community councils to meet with the mayor to, go over, a few items that's specific to each council area? Certainly, I know Jernigan would benefit probably with a meeting from the mayor to discuss a few things. Are those kind of being built into her schedule at this point? I know there's a lot of other pressing, probably higher priority needs citywide, but specific neighborhood wise, certainly Jernigan might have some.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's so hard for all of us to understand when we came into this work, but the mayor has an executive assistant whose main job really is to handle the scheduling. The invitation that the mayor gets is just unbelievable. So we would appreciate it if you would also prioritize among the different community councils on what the needs are. And if you could have as much detail as far as what your ask is of the mayor. And so we can kind of see where it can fit in the priorities, if it's something that really you would like to happen. Give us a time frame of when you would like the meeting, and again, the items you'd like to discuss and what the ask is. I think the scheduler will be better able to manage the scheduling. And I'll give you the email for the scheduling request on the chat.
We'll put it in follow-up email. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And then, Marie, we had a question from, we can go through some delegate questions before we jump to those. I'll try and go back and forth here to give folks some equity. There was a written question. When does the 24-hour MCT begin? And then we'll come back here to delegates in the room.
I imagine that's still, the budget is still in consideration with the assembly, so we're still waiting on that. So that is not something that would be immediate, but you know, the budget is for the year 2025. So that's all I know about that. And I don't have a date to give to you exactly on when they are equipped to start that, hoping that it will be approved.
Thank you. South Edition followed by Bernard. Thank you.
In the past, we've had representatives from the mayor's office attend community council meetings on a routine basis. Is that something that's going to be established in the future? Or because my community council has extended invitations to the mayor's office, but has had no response on providing someone from the administration just to attend the meeting and maybe give a brief update?
We'd like to do that. Ideally, I wish we could. That is the goal at this time, though, with the staffing. I'm covering right now for the front desk since we don't have one for that position yet. And so my ask for you at this time would be to share whatever you can and just keep sending us the invitations, because we do acknowledge and appreciate what an in-person connection creates, and that's the relationship we want to build. But at this time, we're still a little tight on staffing. But yes, just please don't give up on us. We'll try to do that. But for now, if you know, and if you email me too, you know, we can maybe giving you a written report at least in the interim. But again, there's a lot of community councils with just very few mayor staff, but we'd work it out with you however we can. I'll put my email in the chat too, and if I can get that on my schedule, just let me know.
Thank you. And then Spinard followed by Rogers Park.
Thanks. I heard you say that a contract is out for non-congregate shelter. Like it's out for bid or someone has signed it?
There's a second bidder in the works. It's still in the process in the purchasing process, so I can't give out any more info than that. But yes, it's in the works.
Thank you. And then Rogers Park. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for being here tonight, Marie. You were talking about continuing abatement. I'm wondering if you are looking at the areas that are significantly growing on both sides of the Seward Highway, and also the little triangle there between Benson and Northern Lights. The little parkland that we Rogers Park put a resolution in to solidify that parkland is growing. They're chopping trees down. There have been fires there, and it's just all along the whole corridor there, up to 36th and beyond. So are you looking at that? Is that on the abatement list? And where is it on the abatement list?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure Farina Brown and Thea Bembin Agnew Bembin are the two mayor staff who handles the homelessness and health issues. And yes, they are so busy with all the volume of calls too, because I think we all see them, right? I mean, we drive and then we see it's like, oh, there's a new one there, and the shock of how they've grown. And so we are hopefully with the plans that are in place for housing, and also we are prioritizing public safety issues on those camps for abatement. And so, yeah, if you give me a call or email me on that. I can connect you with Farina Brown and find out what we can share as far as where we are on abatements.
Okay. Do you have a phone number? I
I
can
can give that.
right
Yes.
off the bat.
Yes, 343-7133.
343-7133.
33.
Thank you very much.
You're
I'll call
very
you.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. We did have a question. Our executive director had a question for you.
Yeah, I've had a couple councils say that they've reached out via the mayor email that you've provided now, with no response, not even like a, hey, we've received your email. You know, we totally understand the mayor's busy, but even just like an acknowledgement that the emails have been received, is that, you know, the website says that if they fill out the form, they'll hear back in 24 hours. What kind of is the status or the expectation of response time?
Yeah, my understanding, because that is really not our intent with that, but we really, the volume of it is just really hard to handle, like I said, and we're still low on staffing. You know, my last information was that we were giving whatever time frame it is, like if it's 24 hours or if it's a week, depending on when your request is. So that's what I thought was happening. But if not, please send it to me and I can, you know, if you've given it a week or something and there's no response, because that's other staff who's taking care of that, let me know. And again, just want to manage expectations of being able to attend each meeting if that's what the meeting is about. You know, I can provide you information, but again, maybe in-person attendance might not happen until maybe next year.
Yeah, it's not always like a meeting, it's my understanding. They're just trying to get a hold for like questions and stuff and just not hearing anything.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah, I could be your secondary
Thank you.
Contact if you don't hear from them, because that email would be better able to refer you to whoever would be really in charge of what the issue is. But like I said, I'm happy to assist you.
Thank you. I think that's all of the questions we had, so I appreciate you very much taking questions from delegates and sharing the update this evening.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome, Assembly Chair Constant.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It'll be a briefing tonight. Just a handful of things to report on. We have a couple of confirmations coming up in our next meeting. They may be postponed so we can have a little bit more time. One is the Acting Health Department Director, Kim Rash. I think she'll be broadly supported. And the next is the Purchasing Director, who has been the Acting Purchasing Director for a while. And it feels like we're starting to get some order back into those departments. You probably heard in the news that there's a proposal by the administration to repurpose the sprung tent at the port. It's a very interesting proposal because it will take the need for 3 structures that the port was going to have to build and buy and put them all under one. And so one purchase takes care of 3 capital construction projects. It's a good idea. The administration is proposing to take the revenues from the sale to the port because the port will have to buy it, and they have the money to invest in the cold weather shelter program for 2024-2025. And as you had heard previously, there is some discussion ongoing about the non-congregate operator. Currently, Henning was the awarded winner, but the Assembly has not authorized a contract, and we sent it back for more homework because there are lots of questions about Henning. And there is work going on with a second proposer so that we don't find ourselves having only one operator and being beholden to them. And so that is an ongoing matter to be determined much on Tuesday next week when we have a regular meeting. And ultimately, the biggest ticket items on the agenda are the first public hearings for the budget process. There are 7 items on the agenda, which includes the utility budgets, the utility capital budgets, the municipality capital budget, the municipality operating budget, et cetera, et cetera. So we host at a minimum 2 whole public hearings. So any member of the public can speak twice on the budget. And historically, we've been having 3. And so we may very well have a second public hearing on the first meeting in November. So with that, that's, I think, one matter of public concern is the reporting done by Kyle Hopkins relating to prosecutions at the municipality. And I think that's an issue that everybody probably has heard about by now. And it's something that several members of the Assembly have been shouting about for the last 2 years, when the previous administration had submitted budget cuts to remove prosecutors with statements in the budget that said, we recognize that our caseloads are 300 cases per attorney, but we propose cutting the budget. So we've been working with the new administration. I'm very pleased to say that they have hired almost a complete complement of staff in the prosecutor's office. I think they're down just 2 instead of, I think, 8 prosecutors, and they're fully staffed at this point, but now they're playing catch up. And the state has offered, and I'm really grateful to the Office of Special Prosecutions for coming in to provide some assistance with the municipality. So that's the gist of my report.
Thank you. Delegates in the room. Any questions? Delegates online. Yes, Rogers Park.
Who?
Rogers
Can
Park,
I?
go ahead.
Oh, Rogers Park, you said. Okay. Mr. Constant, I'm wondering about the cases that have been let go. Will they be returning to prosecution? That they're a done deal?
Yeah, so the U.S. Constitution grants you a right to a fair and speedy trial.
Right.
And under Alaska law, that has been determined that you have 120 days to get that into motion. And for all of those cases where they haven't had anybody, I anticipate for about the next 60 days, we're going to find these stories coming up and up and up, because you can't just come into a trial at the very end, or a case at the very end, and set it up for success. And so they have been triaging the worst of cases over the last 6 months, 4 months. I've been in discussions with them. I've been telling members of the public this. They've not been able to prosecute the property crime issues because they're triaging which assault cases to take to trial. But I anticipate within the next quarter, you will see a fully functioning law department, prosecutions, and everything back in order. The cause of this whole situation is really twofold, one or threefold. There's a national phenomenon where prosecutions have lagged really hard. This is in many jurisdictions across the country for much the same reason. The Great Resignation occurred after the COVID pandemic. First, the COVID pandemic happened and the courts told all trials. And so what that meant was the 120-day clock stopped. And so they weren't having trials, and you didn't have that barrier. So what ended up happening is all of those trials piled up into a giant wave. As soon as the court reinitiated trials, there was this massive flood of people who had an expectation of 120 days. So there was that. Then there's the Great Resignation. People left. And then, of course, we had a process up in the Department of Law where, for any number of reasons, all the professionals left. And so we're now rebuilding. And I'm really proud to say that Eva Gardner, who's the new municipal attorney, has been aggressive. She brought back Dennis Wheeler, who's now the municipal prosecutor, who's a former municipal attorney, who came back from Fairbanks just to serve this municipality. And so we have someone who's highly qualified, understands the department, doesn't need training wheels, who's going to wrestle that thing back to order. And he just started this week. And so, hope is on the horizon. It's not quite here.
Okay, I'm concerned about the domestic violence cases in particular, and the child abuse and welfare cases. DUI, I guess it is what it is, and maybe they'll get caught again. But those domestic violence abuse cases are really concerning, and I hope it's not going to be incumbent upon the victim to have to bring it back to the municipality.
Yeah, so there's no way, once the clock has tolled, for a trial to be brought again. It is dismissed with prejudice. And so they have a right, if they have been charged, to a speedy trial. And that's a protection in our Constitution that goes back to 1782 or something, 1781. And so it's just vital. And so, but again, that is the priority. The State Office of Special Prosecutions is offering staff to ensure that no more DV cases fall through the cracks. And in fact, under the Berkowitz administration, many years ago, we helped create in 2019 a partnership with the Department of Law where we provided them with police investigators. They provided us with more prosecutors, so they were able to prosecute felony DVs. And so, yes, I think generally speaking, we're all right there with you.
Well,
we share
that's
that
a
concern.
sad story, and I'm sorry that it's incumbent on the victim to have to bring it back. So
There is no way to bring it back. And
No
so
way.
I just, there's no way to bring it back. It's what has to happen is they need to be tried when the case is ripe.
Okay, another occurrence. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Conson, if I may exercise the privilege of the chair and ask a question. I know that we've had difficulty in hiring those prosecutors in the past. It sounds like we're fortunate to have those roles now filled under the new administration. I don't know whether that is through permanent hirings or whether they are individuals being brought back on contract.
Hires.
Perhaps a salary schedule study might be in order to assist in retention on those positions.
The assembly raised the scale for pay for its attorneys last year substantially, 25%. And so there are some who say, oh, you got to do that again. But we are competitive now with the state. And so I don't know that that's it. I think what we had was a hostile work environment that's no longer there. And it just became impossible to work. And the people who are there are just heroes. They're just heroes who stuck around through the darkest of times. And so, yes, we've raised their salary. Yes, we're aggressively recruiting. Yes, we have now a qualified prosecutor in the role who knows the job, who has done it all. And so, and again, this is not a partisan thing. Anybody who knows Dennis Wheeler knows he and I are different stripes, but I deeply respect him and I support him. And I believe in what he's going to do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening.
And, one last note for you, since Mountain View is on the table, I'm working hard to put a little bit more money into the abatement fund, not camp abatements, but actually nuisance property abatements. There's a really great story that was in the paper last week about Jamar Hill, who's a baseball player working on a project in Mountain View. And what he did was he secured a property and he's been fundraising to put in an indoor baseball training center for Mountain View and kind of Fairview neighborhoods, kids out on the street so they can have a fair shot to compete in some of the sports activities around the country. And why I mention this, not so much it's a great project, because it is, but there was an abandoned property about 2 doors down, very nuisance, like burnt down, meth dealers inside, boarded up, boards open, like you can't even imagine. I've been fighting to get rid of it for years. And so working with our code enforcement team and the lender who had the house in foreclosure and Jamar Hill, we were able to work a deal where the muni waived fees and the bank gave the property to Jamar Hill. And then I secured money for code enforcement to come in and demolish the junk building. And so in a cooperative effort between a lender who had a bad property, a private interest who has a great idea, and the muni who has fines and fees that we were able to leverage, we were able to put a property back into use that's going to support children in the Mountain View neighborhood. So Daniel, that one's for you.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate the municipality support. Due to Alaska real estate laws, I cannot divulge who my clients are, but I can say that I am very familiar with that project. Thank you.
Yeah, and it just was a game of government jujitsu where everybody did their part and kind of something magic happened in the best of possible worlds. And so I'll end where I kind of started. Hope is not quite here, but hope is on the horizon and we're moving toward it quickly. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Council updates. That's part of the meeting. They've all been saving up, ready to go. Okay, well, we'll just work our way around the table. Start with Turnigan. Or excuse me, you don't have your sign. Start seeing the footnotes. Excuse me.
I've actually already gone.
Okay.
I don't have anything new to add.
Thank you.
Kathy Gleason, turning in council and currently serving as president. And we always have a very full agenda, but we appreciate when, whether it's municipal representatives or private approaches and say, we're contacting all the community councils and we want to talk to you about this, this, or this. And we appreciate that. Sometimes we can't accommodate them if we have something neighborhood specific, but we appreciate the outreach. So we're always dealing with airport stuff that has continued. And right now they've signed a lease, but they're still receiving comments on West Air Park development, cargo development. They'll have to reroute Point Warrensoff Road that goes down to where the Withrow Center used to be. That will be completely rerouted to the west because in that area now they're going to build a huge cargo facility. So it will have massive impacts on several levels. So we're working with the airport on that. I'm not sure how far we'll get, but also there's a replat dividing one lot into 4 lots at Wood Lake subdivision, which is right south of Northern Lights and east of Arrow. And there's some condominiums that were built in phase 1, but phase 2 was never built by that lot owner. And so now they want to subdivide it and hopefully sell it off and get more condos built in that area by multiple developers. And the existing residents and owners of those condos have a lot of concerns with regard to snow removal, parking, access, etc., because they're issues now. And if they take those kind of empty lots that are being used as de facto parking and snow storage for the existing, so that's going to be an issue now. So those are kind of the 2 things, besides assembly ordinance proposals that continue to come on a very regular, fast-paced basis with regard to amendments to Title 21, which we are keeping track of some, not so good at others, but that's keeping us busy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm John Thurber, South Edition. We had our first in-person meeting in over 3 years. And thanks to Ali and Ariana, our hybrid meeting was successful. I was very concerned that it might be a disaster, but it actually went. We pulled it off pretty well with their help and their equipment. And I just wanted to thank all the efforts that they did to help us. That's all.
I'm Sarah Prescott. I'm the president of the Sonora Community Council. Our focus this last meeting and this upcoming meeting is on pedestrian safety, pedestrian awareness, and really kind of working to find that balance that makes it so everybody gets from point A to point B safely. Yeah, that's what we're working on, and just trying to form committees because that hasn't quite come back from COVID. We have the executive board. And that's our committee, so.
What's saying, Counselor? Oh, you're Spinard, okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you advocating for pedestrian safety. I'm currently getting flamed royally on a viral post online for advocating for pedestrian improvements at Minnesota and Northern Lights. So
it's also a personal passion of mine, which sometimes conflicts with facilitating objectively. But I practice.
Oh, and that's something Turnigan's interested in as well, so it's yeah.
Thank you.
Birchwood Community Council, we had an ongoing problem out in the Eagle River Chudiac area, and I suspect Birdwood maybe too, that the community doesn't always realize that our Parks and Recs is really separate from Anchorage Parks and Recs, even though they're over it. So sometimes they forget that you're supposed to prioritize our area first when and that has been a big deal. Getting our money back from the community to spend on our projects that we agreed for. That also goes to the road board, because apparently the way they score road projects doesn't work out in our area, because we're more rural. So that's been another ongoing thing. But the big topic was the Clutton Native Village possible gaming and whether they can do it. Currently, they're in the process of working on getting all the appropriate permits. It's not the most ideal place. It's down by the airport, which is right in the middle of a bunch of residences. And the road going down can be a little iffy if you're in a hurry. Be a bigger iffy if you're trying to get out, because I have to go up a hill to get onto the main road. So that was it. There was a vote of 4-3 to see if we could send a letter and ask them to reconsider. It was kind of a small meeting for us because it was not in our normal meeting place.
Thank you.
Bayshore Clat, our main priority of concern is this upgrading of the Chugach Power Station there on the corner of 100th and Victor. And their equipment there is getting out of date and can't be supported with repair parts. Need a major upgrade. And included in that is a rather tall tower. It's a small piece of property, and they were proposing initially to eliminate all the greenery around the property. And so we pushed back, and it's being reevaluated.
Thank you. Question, Jack?
Russian Jack, our big issue the last meeting, had to do with the homelessness issues that we have in our parks and our surrounding area and the community. And have to thank George Martinez for connecting with the mayor's office and bringing in not only the mayor's office, but Parks and Rec. The only bad news is that we really didn't get any resolution. They just said, oh yeah, we know it's a problem, but no promises of any kind. It's a pretty big issue from fires to structures that have no building permits. And seriously, I would not want the fire department to have to go in and work on some of those facilities, because that's what they are. They're huge structures. They're cutting down trees in the Russian Jack Springs Park, and they're doing a lot of drug dealing as well. We had APD there as well, and no resolution from them either. So more to come.
Thank you. Stacy?
Yeah, Governor O'Malley, our last meeting was all things APD, and Alderman showed up. We had, I think, 4 people from the school district that came to talk to us, and they gave us a good time and things to think about and to advocate for schools. That's where we were at.
The Abbott Community Council, and we've got our meeting is tomorrow. It's usually on the last Thursday of the month. That's Halloween. And move back again. So it is tomorrow. We've got some zoning things occurring. There's going to be a rezone on some lots in the Abbott Town Center. And then coming up, from the assembly, there seems that there's a proposal to alter the requirements in Independence Park so that the sidewalks and landscaping can be replaced by parking lots. And so reduce the requirements for landscaping and sidewalks and count snow storage in the parking lots as open space. We put through a proposal to kind of slow it down, give us a little bit more time to look at resolution, to have us be able to look at the invitations a little bit more.
Independence Park is a planned unit development.
Well, Independence Park is one of the densest neighborhoods in Anchorage. It's where I live. It's in the Abbott Community Council area. It's got some vacant lots that are zoned for high density, and they're a good place to put them in. So the idea was to reduce the need for landscaping and sidewalks in order to increase to put maximum density on those lots. We want a little more time to look at it. I personally don't think it's a good idea to remove sidewalks from an area that is one of the few neighborhoods that is walkable. But we asked for it to slow down so that we can look at that more. We're also quite concerned about the pedestrian safety issues. And we're gonna have a presentation tomorrow, but the folks giving the presentation weren't quite ready yet, so.
The reason I mentioned the PUD is, so I serve on planning and zoning, for those who don't know. There's an ordinance dealing with PUDs that's did not go to planning and zoning, it went straight to the assembly. And so they are currently, that's in their court.
Okay, so that's the issue. Yeah.
I believe Independence Park, the entire Independence Park is a planned unit development.
Okay.
Rather than being a traditional neighborhood where Title 21 applies, like it's a PUD, so it's a separate creature. And so I don't know how this new ordinance will impact the requirements, but it may be something that is before the assembly presently, so.
Right.
Under this new ordinance, so.
They passed that at
They-
their
did they
last
pass
meeting.
it?
Yes,
Okay.
with no substantial, with no amendments.
Okay. So, yeah, I haven't had a chance
It's
to look
now.
at it, and I've been saying I'm really concerned about what that's gonna do to walkability in our neighborhood. We used to have bus service. We have retirement, seniors living there, and people that if you put bus service in, they wouldn't need cars. And so I'd like to look at it more, and it seems to be really short-sighted to say, okay, we're not gonna put sidewalks in, when instead you could put bus service in.
I'd love to talk to you some more about that. Maybe I'm monopolizing everyone else's time.
Okay,
right now,
okay,
so
yeah,
I'll talk to you more about that.
okay, good, good.
Mountain View Community Council, had a very well-attended meeting. 75 or 80 people. We had all of the brass from, yeah, we had, it was, apparently, I don't know if it was televised, they had TV cameras, 7 or 8 high-ranking APD officers, Farina Brown. We had several people from the ACLU. We had the Parks Director, several park staff. We had Henning people there. We had at least 10 or 15 people from the homeless camps. We had elections. I don't know if they were gonna run someone to be on the board. That would have been interesting. But the very interesting meeting talking about camping, abatements, enforcement, that sort of thing in Mountain View. Discussions about gun violence in particular. And this was a meeting that was 2 or 3 weeks ago, obviously very timely. And there was a vote of no confidence taken in the Boys and Girls Club as the operator of the Mountain View Community Center. There were 6 or 7 staff, including the CEO and directors of the facilities, the Boys and Girls Club, that were present. There's concern among community members that the reduction in offerings by the Boys and Girls Club and the institution of charging a fee for membership is not in line with that building's purpose in the community, which is a municipal facility. And so there's probably going to be a larger discussion about whether BGC continues to operate there in Mountain View and if additional municipal support is warranted. If BGC was to pull out, the municipality would be obligated to operate it as a community center, just like in Fairview or Spinard. And so there's a municipal cost to that. And that cost is clearly more than what they are subsidizing the Boys and Girls Club. So obviously some politics will be done about that. But to see a community vote, no confidence in Boys and Girls Club was not a high point in community council relations, but something that did happen. So that's been on view. Let's start with Attorney Gennard, Community Council.
Thank you. Our last meeting was in September, and there wasn't a whole lot going on now that the fishermen stopped running up and down the highway. The only thing we have huge traffic is trucks, but it's nice and quiet down here, much quieter than the rest of the municipality, and we want to keep it that way. So everybody travels safe on the highway. Our next meeting is in December, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining us too. Rabbit Creek.
Rabbit Creek, much like our friends in Turning an Arm, it's quieted down quite a bit with the traffic going through Powder Marsh and that. I wasn't available for most of September, so I don't really have a good handle on any hot issues, although the issue that drew the most interest was the PUD rush to judgment there, where it just seemed like now you see it, now you don't type of deal. So anyway, things are going along very well for the fall season. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Eagle River Valley Community Council.
Yeah, much like the Birchwood Community Council, we've been talking a lot about problems within the Eagle River Chugiak Parks and Rec Department, and them really not coordinating or consulting the Board of Supervisors as is required in statute. So that's kind of been a big area of conversation. At our last meeting, it was pretty brief. We had a presentation from the No on 2 campaign, and we've been kind of having, I guess, one of the more serious issues so to speak, that we've been talking about is the Eagle River Road Service Area contract with the McKenna Brothers is going up 24% this year. And a lot of our emergency funds for snow plowing and stuff like that are have been reduced drastically, especially over the last 2 years with the heavy snow load we've received. So we're kind of having conversations about potentially putting a mill rate increase in the ballot in April, but it's kind of a bigger issue that we've been working on.
Not even gonna touch Eagle Exit. I don't know how that popped out there. University Air.
Yeah, our main subject was the Goose Lake. There's a building there that's kind of becoming dilapidated, and we're discussing whether we want to put a resolution to have it rehabbed or just have it torn down and put something else in there, and if so, what type of facility. So that was the main object. Thank you.
Thank you. Government Hill.
Yeah, Bob French here. We are having our meeting tomorrow night. We have also been somewhat active on the PUD issues, and we had gotten a forest grant to take care of some invasive trees, the bird cherries and such, and we're working forward to be able to get that rolling next summer and next spring. That's about it. Thanks.
Any big news through AMATs? I heard of someone mentioned there was a $25 million grant to redo Burgaw. Are you familiar with anything to do with that?
Interestingly enough, because of the lack of staffing, the AMATs Citizens Advisory Committee has not had any meetings since, I believe, about March. They basically shut down the meetings for us. So, other than following what's going on the AMATs website and their emails that they send out, we haven't heard anything at all and have not had any meetings or any actions.
Thank you. Yeah, I've seen some cancellation emails for the general meetings as well.
Yeah.
Eagle River Community Council.
Yeah, same issues as Eagle River Valley and Birchwood. We passed a couple resolutions concerning the Eagle River Chugiak Parks and Rec, and also a resolution concerning a new housing development going in a couple of years at Klutna's property, Powder West, I think it was called. Some homeowners had some issues with that. Other than that, we do appreciate the outreach that FCC has started. I've been talking up the town hall meetings. Definitely appreciate it, and hopefully it will help the community councils out. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And then Northeast Community Council.
Yeah, one of the main topics of interest with the Northeast Community Council was homelessness. It was discussed that Centennial Park was one of the areas that have some homelessness scaring. So there was a walk on Tuesday last month after September 17th, where they had a walk to kind of discourage homelessness around that area. I'm not sure how successful that was, but it seemed to be a good turnout. And one of the solutions that the Assembly Karen gave for the homeless population was to provide smaller housing for homeless populations. So that is one of my updates.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to our presentations. Thank you very much for your patience. I don't think we had any old business pending out there, so so sorry to keep you waiting so long, but I do appreciate very much you hanging with us. So without further ado, Mandy Honest.
My name is Mandy Honest. I work with the Municipal Clerk's Office. And I brought with me to introduce, because you all and your community councils work with them, So Liza Spano works with me in the clerk's office. She has been sending you guys your notice emails about alcohol and marijuana licensing. And then I also have Elizabeth Appleby with us. She's from the planning department, so I wanted her to come and help if there was any kinds of questions with the special land use permit side of this. So I have handouts to hand out to you, but I apologize. They printed real tiny. So we have electronic versions that I submitted. And so we can email them to you. So hopefully those will go better, but I will leave these,
I did drop them in the Zoom chat for those online, and then
alcohol.
they are on our website.
And then this is a marijuana. So these are just, flow charts that I created to kind of give a general overview of the process. I have little notes on the side that, are for specifically the community councils to know when certain things happen, when you're solicited for comments. So that's, again, I apologize, it's so tiny. So I wanted to come and talk to you all because we've recently had some community councils contact the clerk's office and ask about some of the processes for the licensing, how they can interact with their local government, with the community council activities to the assembly, if there's questions or concerns about a potential license for alcohol or marijuana in your areas. So first of all, I just kind of wanted to give everybody either a refresher course, or if you're new, go over the information, high level of just kind of what you see, what you can expect to see. And then kind of give you a little bit more detail on where your input comes into play for the assembly and in the process. So for the first one, this is the overview of the alcohol license. Kind of high level, it starts with AMCO, which is the Alcohol Marijuana Control Office. All licenses for alcohol and marijuana start with the state. The local governments get the opportunity to weigh in and submit comments, and that's something that we send notice to community councils for. Any kind of comments we receive from you, we attach to the packet that the assembly reviews, and that goes to the state. So you'll see it starts here. Community councils, I want to say about 2 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 now, because of input from councils, changed our internal processes for noticing, because of your meetings being so spread out sometimes because summers are off. We try to change our noticing to you all to give you the max amount of notice on alcohol licenses that we have as well. So as soon as we receive a notice from the state that there's a proposed alcohol license, so they've deemed this application complete, they send us the notice, we immediately send you all the notice. And so you have the same 60 days that the local government has to review, to submit comments to the assembly that we then would relay to the state. So we call it a courtesy notice. You get it by email. Our communications come to you all through the council president emails that are on the FCC website. So I've noticed it's been updated a lot more frequently, which is very much appreciated. That's our point of contact. So if that's where we send it and it's not updated, that's really hard to get you guys the information.
So if your board changes, let us know as soon as possible.
Yes, yeah. And so you get that courtesy notice right off the bat. And it lets you know when we anticipate that it will go before the assembly, so you have kind of an idea. And typically we give you the max amount of time where it's the 60 days and then the closest assembly meeting prior to that 60 days. So that's kind of our general process for any of the licenses. That gives the municipality the max amount of time to do reviews, to check for any public safety concerns, to allow the community and the community councils to submit comments. And so throughout that process, we work with the application, reviewing it. We work with the departments. They do their specific reviews for safety, fire, health, all of the different departments can weigh in. And then we send a second notice to the councils to let them know, yes, for sure, this is the meeting that it's going to be at. You have this amount of time to submit comments. And so anything we receive up to the night before the meeting, we can put into print. If it's the day of the meeting, we encourage you as a council, you have the opportunity to go to the meeting and speak on any items. A lot of times you'll see assembly memorandums. We do our licenses for alcohol in 2 ways. Once we do our review process, if all of the departments say they're good based off of the code requirements for their section, they comply with fire, they comply with health, etc. We put it as a recommendation to waive protest before the assembly. So that said, the assembly is the ultimate reviewer. They're the ones that either passes it or decides that they want to do some sort of other action. But based off of our reviews, we send these proposals before the assembly. So you would get notice of that. You would get a copy of the assembly memorandum stating, we didn't find anything wrong with this application. So we recommend waive protest. And then if we receive any kind of comments, those would be attached to that application that goes before the assembly as well. Separately, because it's 60 days, it's kind of a narrow time to review. So if we don't have enough time to review, departments don't get back to us, there are issues, you'll see a resolution. The resolutions are, we call them conditional protests. So that allows us to lodge a protest to the state based on either they haven't complied with an inspection yet. And so those conditional protests allow the state to put a 180-day abeyance on the license instead of denying it. So you would get a notice of that as well. Those are always going to be public hearing items. And so you would get notice that these are public hearing items, have the opportunity to come to the assembly meeting and speak. Community council representatives get the 5 minutes, everybody else gets 3. And so all of these things are in these notice emails that you all receive. So I kind of have on some of the next slides, just some of the examples of the emails. Like I said, Liza deals with alcohol, so you get lots of emails from her. So this is just kind of generally what they look like. You'll see your notice, you'll see just the detailed information about what it is, the other attachments. This one I just wanted to put in because we do an annual notice to all community councils of anticipated renewals. You got that recently. We have to send it before September 1st. So this one is kind of fresh. It gives the councils kind of a heads up for the next year. We anticipate receiving these applications. If you all have any concerns with a licensed establishment in your area, this is the time to start acting on it. And so you kind of get those heads up, like I said, other emails. This is just kind of some of the same email notices that you guys see. So I'll stop here and just let you know, for alcohol, some of the questions that we've had is about where councils fit into the process when it comes to problem operators or concerns. So like I said, that first notice at September on, I think we tried to send it mid-October or mid-August, but we rely heavily on community councils input for your areas. We can put all of the comments that we receive into the packet and put them before the assembly. We can compile a history that way. But if we don't receive comments from councils, it's very hard to protest an establishment right off the bat. You know, these have to be protested and they can't be arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable per state statute. And so we have to show reasonable cause why this license is being protested. So that comes very heavily from the comments of the community members that live around it and see things and can provide detailed documentation. So that said, we receive comments anytime. If you all have, or your councils or your community members have questions or concerns, You can send them to the clerk's office anytime and we compile all of this. They all go before the assembly. They see these things. But the more documentation we can compile, the better a case the municipality would have to deal with a problem operator. And so that's kind of the big thing I wanted to relay for the licensing portion. And kind of similar with the marijuana. So I'm kind of a point person for the marijuana licenses. The weird difference with alcohol and marijuana is marijuana, there is also a municipal license requirement. So all of the same things that happen with alcohol, there's a state marijuana license. We do the same thing. You'll receive the email notices. We receive a notice from the state. We let you all know. We have the opportunity to collect comments and protest the state license, but separately, the municipality has power over its own marijuana license. And so the assembly can deny those licenses, and without both, the operator can't continue. So same thing with noticing. You'll see the emails. I send an annual notice of anticipated renewals every year. Very similar process. So these are all kind of your standard applications. And where Elizabeth comes in for the special land use permit, that's going to be kind of a one and done. If an establishment doesn't have a land use permit to do that activity, and it's like any other land use permit, if there's a use for a building and it changes its use type. So if it was a daycare, they go out of business, and some other type of business like a bar wants to go in there, they have to change the use type of that building. So that's a whole process that the planning department deals with. And they have their own process of noticing community councils. Councils have the opportunity to comment. And that also goes before the assembly for approval ultimately. And so I will if there's any questions on that, I will divert those to Elizabeth. But the big thing too with the special land use permits for marijuana and alcohol, I had a question about this, and this is something that we're kind of trying to clarify in a rewrite for the marijuana licensing code. The special land use permit for marijuana requires those community meetings for new applicants. And this is a requirement of the land use permit. It's required in code. That was something different that was done for marijuana that alcohol doesn't have. And so, unfortunately, that's not something that we have to force businesses to do for alcohol. It's not a requirement. It's not something that we check for. It's something that we encourage them to do. And so that, I think there's been a little bit of confusion with, because we were going to regulate marijuana like alcohol, same, but a little different. And so that's one of the big things that I wanted to point out and maybe push down is the special land use permit is going to be different for that purpose for alcohol. And for renewals on marijuana and alcohol, we don't require them to do community meetings with each application. So these are things that we encourage the councils and licensees to get relationships going so that that's something that you can continue and have those open lines of communications. But that was something I wanted to point out for some of the differences because we've had questions for that before.
Thank you. I appreciate you noting that. When marijuana was legalized and the licensure became possible, there was a requirement that dispensaries in a certain council area enter into like a good neighbor agreement or a memorandum of understanding with that community council that stated, the points of contact, the steps they would go through to resolve issues before escalating and that kind of thing. I know in Mountain View, we've done that with our dispensaries. Obviously, marijuana dispensaries are not limited by population in the way that alcohol is. And given that we've had a shrinking population for decades, we're not likely to see a new dispensary alcohol license, beverage dispensary happen in the next decade or so. Are those agreements still required for operators? or that is that requirement to have one of those still enforced? I don't know if that was a slump or CUP.
Yeah, so, it's all SLUPs now, it's all the special land use permits. The cup came from the conditional use permit, which was old code. And now even for downtown, there was a portion where it was not covering downtown. Now all of the muni is covered with with the new Title 21. And so yes, in Title 21, it is still a requirement for the marijuana special land use permit applicants to have a community meeting. And so it doesn't have to be with the community council. That should be the first option per Title 21. But if the council isn't meeting in a timely manner, if like you're on break for summer, the applicant has an opportunity to do a community meeting another way. They just have to provide documentation of why they had to do that. But the same noticing, they'd have to notice, is it 1,000 feet?
It's 500 feet. And I can.
Yeah, I'm right.
To the MOU
Elizabeth, take off.
I anticipated that, so I have like the MOU I would right in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the marijuana SLUPs, they had to have a community meeting, like Mandy said. First choice is community council. If they do not have the community council, they have to provide an explanation why. They have to send notice. It's generally 500 feet, but it's also 50 parcels, so some of the less urban areas, sometimes the distance can increase to get to 50 parcels. But they're required to send out that notice to property owners and residents that they're having this community meeting, whether it's ends up being one with the council or one that they organize separately. As far as the MOU, so for retail sales establishments, it's they're encouraged to engage in neighborhood responsibility planning. They need to include a report on the status of their community engagement efforts. A copy of an informal memorandum of understanding or MOU outlining what they've heard of the community council may be included with the application. But if they can opt to not have an MOU, they can say in the absence of an MOU, they can explain their community engagement efforts. So it's sort of like the requirement where through your community meeting, or it does give an option if they're having trouble getting an MOU signed with the community council for whatever reason, like maybe it's over the summer or they aren't meeting. So specifically for the retail sales, it's encouragement not required to have a signed MOU with the community council. One other thing I'll pinpoint, what Mandy said is, for an existing establishment, if there's issues, those would generally be responded to by code enforcement, and the most common one for marijuana tends to be odor, and documentation is important, so just encourage if you want to make a report, document it, like time, date that you smell the odor, things like that. And if there's not a record just to enter that you don't really have anything to go on, even if you, even if you brought it to your council and you need some sort of record of that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, really is going to be there. It's a legal process. It's the license is a right. And so in order to take it away from someone, if there's substantial reason to, it hasn't happened much. So I've been with the MUI a little over 9 years, and I've seen 3 licenses die. So it is very uncommon to get to that level where the applicant refuses to work with the council or the community. They refuse to comply with an MOU that they've signed. There's other issues with it, so it's typically gets resolved before that point. But a lot of that resolution comes from the councils being engaged and working with them and being diligent to document if they're not complying with an MOU. And for alcohol, they're not required to do an MOU, but you can still work with them, reach out to them, invite them to meetings. And documenting whether they come or not, and the engagement that the council has tried to have with the operator to show their due diligence to try and remedy the issue. And so that's kind of one of the biggest things that I think the councils are very important for. You all live in these areas, you see the daily impacts. The municipality is very much a complaint-based system. And so if you complain, we can compile that and we can create a record. But if we don't receive those, it's very hard to have a case to show it's worth protesting a license without that history. So that's something I think was some of the questions we've had from councils through emails and through some meetings, and so wanted to try and come and relay that to all councils to let you know it is. I know we've heard some frustrations that nothing seems to get done when you complain, or when you submit concerns. It's a slow process, unfortunately. And the few that we've seen, you know, it's taken sometimes years. So not to be depressing on it, but really most of the work and most of the stuff the municipality relies on you guys for. And so I just wanted to come and encourage you all to stay active in it and to keep communicating with us. And that's kind of going to be the biggest help for us and for the councils in the neighborhoods to deal with any concerned operators or establishments.
We have a quick question from University Area Community Council.
Yes, thank you for coming. Last spring, I believe it was, we had a request for a new marijuana facility on Rose Street off Northern Lights near Boniface. And we protested it because it fell within the I think it was 1,000 feet from a elementary school and the Anchorage headquarters. And we did a resolution sent to the state and to the mayor and 7 people and everybody else. We have never heard back from that as far as I know. Does that mean it didn't go anywhere?
Do you know the name of the establishment by any chance?
I've got it in my record here. I don't want to take the time up to,
Do you know that?
I
I think I know that one.
It was on Rose Street near Northern Lights.
Yes, yeah, so that one, we have not received an application for.
Is that the no limits?
You know, I don't remember the name, I think that's it.
Okay.
I just remember it was that Rose Street near, I remember it was near Northern Light, so I believe that's the one you're asking about.
Okay.
I still have the communication from the University Area Community Council in my office, but I have not received an application. I've been doing, I've taken over the marijuana, I think for just about a year and a half now. But there's at least, the ones I've seen have actually been caught in the outreach they're required to do before they even submit an application, where there's 1 or 2 other ones that I know of where they've met with the community council, and based on feedback, they have not submitted an application. So, but in the case of that one, to answer your question, we have not received an application, so there's nothing formal to comment on or review.
Thank you. Bernard had a question?
I do. So what is the responsibility of the community council? So like, we get your emails, hooray, and before it was like, thanks. But like, what's our responsibility once we receive those emails? Is it on us to reach out to that establishment to set up an MOU? Or is it on them to reach out to us?
It's on them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the applicants. So For marijuana only.
Okay.
So if it's a new application for a special land use permit, they are responsible to reaching out and setting up the community meeting. So they should contact you guys and work with your schedule and try and get on.
And so for alcohol, would I reach out to them and be like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood?
We
Here's
have
something we should
some
do.
community councils that do that, yes. So, they won't. Alcohol will not reach out to you because they're not required to. They may, which would be fantastic. And we do encourage them to communicate with the neighborhood that they're going into, try and develop that relationship. But again, they're not required by us or by the state. And so for alcohol, if it's one that you guys want to take on, I know that the Downtown Community Council has developed a alcohol and marijuana subcommittee, and they're very active with reaching out to both.
They have special rules too, right?
For the downtown area.
Yeah.
They do for
licenses.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's area restrictions specifically for alcohol in the downtown area.
Yeah.
So
And if they don't fulfill the requirements of the MOU, but it's for things like they didn't come to the number of meetings they said they would go to. But like there's no problems at the establishment, is that still something we should document and report?
I think
or is it
the
like?
discretion of the councils.
Okay.
I mean, if you guys feel like it's worth, I mean, I feel like it's worth documenting if you feel like it's becoming a problem where that led to bigger problems, it's worth documenting stuff. But it's kind of, I think, at the discretion of how your relationship goes with them. Anything that you submit, anything that the applicant submits, anything that the public submits to the clerk's office regarding one of those, we will attach it to the application. So we have no discretion on what, like, if we receive it, it gets sent to the assembly for their review. So that's kind of up to you guys, what you want to include in your packets to go before the assembly for their review.
As a former council president, many years who dealt with a licensee, and we actually, I think Fairview and Mountain View had a lot of experience in this. I think Spenard actually had some too, many years ago with an operator. But if you are having a problem operator and you put them on your agenda and you invite them, they don't show, that's documentation. If you have licenses that come up in batch every year, like multiple licensees, you can put on your agenda renewal licenses. And if no one has a problem, you can just leave it, or you can do what Mountain View often does, which is to adopt a resolution of non-objection and forward it to the municipality. If they love to see stuff like that, hey, no problems, put it in the assembly's packet and it sails through. And it also evidences a record of working with operators, that you're not always just complaining. Community councils are actually spelled out in state statute, which is kind of cool because, we don't exist in a lot of places officially, right? But we exist when it comes to alcohol laws. And anytime there's, I think, a change of ownership of 10% or more of a license, or if it's changing from one council area to another, there's a required notice period to both affected councils and an opportunity to provide input, which is really cool. So councils do have, when people say, oh, you're just advisory. Well, yeah, we're advisory, but we're spelled out in statute as having a right to have input. So you can always throw that back at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is, it's on both levels too. It's the state and the muni. You can send the same correspondence to the state that you send to the muni for the same application. Anything that I have received and that Liza receives, our office really makes an effort to, we have a whole group of enforcement that we send any kind of complaints to. So the state gets the same stuff that we get, APD gets it, code enforcement gets it. So we kind of, any kind of complaints or any kind of concerns about an area, we send that off to all of them so everybody's on the same page. And that creates part of the record too. So you have that opportunity to send to the state and the city for those.
Any more questions? Carol and then Kathy, and then I think we're past time. So I do apologize. Carol, go ahead.
Question is, since a Kootenai native village, the land they're wanting to build their gaming hall on is actually allotment land, and they don't pay property tax on that. But they do have a piece of land attached to it that the native village actually has. That they do pay property tax. Now, the question is, if they apply for a liquor license, which they said they didn't know if they were going to or not. Are they gonna go through you since it's allotment land?
So that is currently a question that we have circulated through legal, and it is still going through legal. There's a lot to it that they have. There's decisions that have been made by the courts that weigh into it. So at this point, I don't have a lot of information I can give on it. We don't have an application for one, so we don't have a specific location. But legal is doing a review. Well, I heard you say earlier about the building permits and all of that. I do know that legal is involved in reviewing on the building permit side as well, and we haven't had direction from them yet.
Okay.
But my understanding is that at least at this point, the state would send us the deemed complete alcohol license application if one was received. So until I get further direction from legal, that's kind of the understanding.
Because the allotment land, technically, my understanding is federal.
So it's
the gaming.
It's a question of whether the land is being held in trust. And it's probably way too complex for us to get into. The only thing close to it would be like Metlakatla.
Yeah.
And there was a no more clause in ANCSA where we were supposed to not have any more federal the native claim settlement was supposed to not have any more reservations. And so in short, the village is requesting it be treated as if it's sovereign federal territory. So that they have applied with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to have it as a class 2 gaming license. And so it would probably be a question that the state of Alaska would get involved in as to whether they have enforcement of liquor laws and that sort of thing. Probably above the muni even, but definitely unsettled legal questions.
Now, apparently this land was designated before Anuka. And we came directly to the family that owns the land that they're going to give to the village.
The George Ondola allotment.
So that was my question.
Yeah. And yes, it is, there's a lot of legal intricacies to it.
Even the neighbors.
Yeah, so at this time, no application. A lot of what we've had is just kind of through the newspaper articles and just through communications with the state asking kind of similar questions. And so it's in legal's arena right now. But if we were to receive something, you would receive notice of it.
And then last question before we wrap up.
Yeah, thanks for you guys attending this evening. We don't have any marijuana facilities within the Turning Community Council. And just one liquor, well, 2 rivers to exclude the airport. So we're pretty isolated on all these issues. This is more anecdotal of just a citizen of Anchorage. But Turning Community Council, myself and another board member at the time, we followed from day one when marijuana was going to become a thing and followed every meeting, every workshop, every hearing on code with regard to marijuana. And smell was a big thing and by all community and input, we don't want to smell these facilities. And for a lot, and I think that was maybe about 10 years ago. I've kind of forgotten how long they've been.
16.
Okay, so 8 years. I still have a pile, this high of documents. So I would have to say, living here all this time, for many years after these marijuana facilities had opened of the 3 categories, I never smelled a thing. And I was happy about that because the smell makes me sick, frankly. But it seems like over the last year or so, as I'm out and about, driving around town, not in Turnigan, I'm smelling them. And just literally last weekend, we were driving on Tudor, turned from Minnesota to Tudor, driving east, and within about a block or so, we started smelling it heavy. You know, windows rolled up, driving speed limit, and it went on till we were almost at Old Seward. So it was difficult to know, you know, I didn't complain, but it was difficult to know how many facilities we may have driven past that were emanating that really obviously strong smell. I'm wondering if you guys in your jobs have received more complaints about smell in the recent past versus more of the past, because I don't know if it's because operators are getting a little, hey, we're good, or, you know, and skipping, you know, process, relaxing their diligence about following that. But I can tell you, when everything that code was written and all the public input, smell was the one thing we said can't happen. We don't want our city to smell like a big pop shop.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid it's creeping to that level, but this is purely anecdotal. So I'm curious if your level of.
So I personally haven't received any complaints to the clerk's office. Typically, those go to code enforcement directly. And we don't know about the complaints unless it gets elevated to an actual citation. So the process is the code enforcement receives a complaint. They, at some point near that complaint, or maybe a couple of times after, will go to the location and conduct an inspection. And they document what they find. And if they do find odor, and it's usually, they say at least 2 officers have to go, then it gets elevated to a violation. If they don't smell it, then nothing comes of it. So it's kind of, I think the smell has been a really hard thing to document and to cite, because it is so changing with wind and time. And so I don't really know the answer to that. At the Community and Economic Development Committee meetings previously, we used to do very regular enforcement reports on marijuana. Code enforcement would show what they had for the quarter or whatever. It dropped off, and at the last CPC meeting, Chair Constant had requested that it start back up again. And so that last meeting was the first one that those quarterly enforcement reports started again. So from that, it didn't show that there was, I think there was one odor. Do you remember, Liza? Yeah. So there's one odor violation for the whole year. They did all of 2024 to that point. So other than that, I don't personally have any other information on whether it's increased or not. But that's a hard one.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Mandy, thank you very much for your
Thank
presentation.
you.
Really appreciate the opportunity to ask
And
questions.
our office is always open for questions, so please feel free to email us, call us. We're happy to help in any way.
And we'll have I have a page on the website under training, that's council board training, and we're starting to add links for different departments. So there will be one with all the documents, a link to the video of this, as well as the memorandum for marijuana. I'm gonna put into a doc so that you guys can easily grab it, and Mandy and her office's contact information. So both trying to make a one-stop shop for all things council, alcohol and marijuana, and try to continue doing these kind of education things, and we'll have you back hopefully.
Yeah, we would like to do
so
this
that we
regularly.
keep doing this.
Yeah, that way we can kind of keep updated on anything new and have more contact with you all too, so.
Awesome, I really appreciate it, thanks,
Yes.
Al. You're
Before we wrap up here, any other comments, questions, concerns, gripes?
Yeah,
And the electronic copy. should
Nothing
be
else?
what-
Exact-
Okay.
Thank you. You know, just this discussion about the PUD, changes is a really good example of something that's been, for about a year plus now. If FCC could find a way, and this is just an idea and nothing more, and some thought and discussion, could somehow help community councils coordinate better on Title 21 changes. I mean, they have come down the pipe so quickly.
Unfortunately, this one didn't really get a public notice beyond the assembly meeting.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but I didn't know about it until I got an email the day before the public hearing from Diane Holmes on the PUD.
Yes, so I think it would be appropriate because we're losing respect to the staff's time.
Yeah.
Everybody else, if we could have a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, move to adjourn.
Any objection?
I'll do the recording, please.
Okay,
And then I think.
okay, we are adjourned.